Okay, so I'm making corners in T-sections. This is hopefully how I'm going to do it. I've got one prepped already. So I've got a bunch of 2-inch blocks that I made prior. And I'm going to try to repurpose and salvage as much of the stuff that I've made wrong as possible. So, I'm taking the 2-inch, I'm going to cut it down, like I did to this one, to 1.5 inches. With a little bit of shaving on the end. Then I'm taking a 1-inch piece. As you can tell, I already detailed and then doubled over it with a pin, because these are small. It's hard to get pressure on these things with the roller. And then I'm taking a 1-inch piece, which these are less than 1 inch, but they're supposed to be a 1-inch piece. And taking that, and I patterned it so it looks like a nice wooden beam, whatnot. I'm sticking that onto there. But since this is less than 1 inch, that's less than 1/2 inch, that's going to be less than ideal. So I trimmed off a spacer. I'm putting a spacer in between. And I sanded it down. So I've got a little less than 1.5 inches, a little less than 1.5 inches. Now we glue. All right. Now, I already tried to do the template thing on this before, but that was before I added the spacer. So now I need to redo my dots. Yeah, this is going to be a huge mess. Just there, right in there. All right. Put in my screws and pray that it worked. Let's go test it out. Works for lefts and rights. The only reason it's going to be an issue going which way or other is if you're anal about which side you want your fake wood to be on. It should not work on the T sections, and it does not, because that's a different lineup. And I think I'm going to have to do something different here too. Yes, because these are longer than that. So I'm going to have to make 1.5 inches for those. 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, those would butt up. And then if there's a door here, they can walk through. But it doesn't work this way, so that's fine. Because these are T-sections, these are walls, that's a corner. If I want to get really anal, I can add in another screw. But I think that's going to work just fine. There's enough flex to it. That's a T-section. Okay, yeah, that one could work there. Okay. Because it's a different size room. Can it? I'm gonna have to play with it. You don't need to watch this. Okay, so I've got a sample of walls here. So that's my stack that I'm kit bashing to fit the board. My current debate is how many T-squares should I be making? There are 16 T's on the board. Each section's got a 4. And maybe, I think there's one of them that might have an extra. Anyway, either way, I don't always need to have a T-square, because in some scenarios, a T is going to just be replaced by a standard 3-piece. And if there's a T and I need to swap it out because there's a secret passage, then that's what I'll end up doing. However, there's going to be scenarios where I'll have a 1-inch piece. Actually, I'll have a 1-inch piece, which will sit in that same T scenario, because there's going to be a door here or a door there. So I need to make pieces like this that are flexible, that can fit in that door scenario, in that T scenario, without taking up the T. Now granted, T's are just convenient, and therefore I'm going to have T's. But I think I need to have more of these than less. The other side of it, that's the other side of it, is, as you can see, I put a small nail in there because the screw would stick out on the far end, because if we line it up, cheek to cheek, you can see how much further that screw sticks out. So that nail still covers where the magnet is. It still gives me a good sturdy point where it's not going to be, you know, spinning around like that. Anyway, so that makes sense to me there. As you can see, I've got corner, I've got a single, I've got a T, I got an adjustable for the T. That's the other question, is there's other scenarios where I need something that's halfway between here and 1. All right, so here's what I'm talking about. So situations like this where we got the cross, okay? We got a square that snaps in. We got a single that snaps in. We got this gap. This gap is that's your 1.5 inches. So it's shorter than the 1.5 inches. If I go vertical on that, it's shorter than the 1.5 inches because that's lined up with there, provided that my lines are straight. And the 1.5 inches over here, because we got our 1/2 inch wall spacing. So you would assume that's an 1 inch gap. But as you can tell, I'm at 1.25 inches. This guy is 1 inch. And of course, because of how he's set up, if I put him in, there's a gap. But it's not that full 1/2 inch wall length, which, I mean, these are variable. Some of these are thick, some of these are thin, you know. Can I use the 1.5 inches? Sure. But I also have hangover. So that starts the crowd and starts the push. And considering that I'm wanting to make sure that these are thin enough that I could have a little bit of flocking, green flocking on the ends of them to kind of fill in the gaps, to give it a little bit of squish, or maybe even just green felt to make it look like moss. And some of these are budding, and some of them are really gappy. So that's what I'm working on. So this one here needs to be that 1.25 inches. This needs to be 1.25 inches, and it's going to be the same on all of these. We set that down. I got an 1.25 inches wall here, 1.25 inches. Rotate it. Same thing, 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches. A magnet that's not hooking. Probably because I'm off. But, so I've got that happening on all 4 sections. Not just because this one's kooky. Plus, I'm sure there's going to be other scenarios where I'm going to need that optional piece. And as you can see here, we've got a door, we've got a wall. That works. That works. And our stumpies. Snap right in. Snap right in. Secret door, pull that out. So it's occurred to me, I've been making all my T-sections here, and I don't think I've shown exactly what it is that I'm doing. And here's my last piece. So I've been taking a lot of my 4-inch pieces and cutting them down to be a 3-inch chunk, and then taking the remainder and using scrap to slice off thin little slivers. And that gives me when you put this, interact with that, my 1.5 inches. Well, little 1.5 inches, a little shy 1.5 inches, something like that. I've made a bunch of them where I've glued them together like this, about like 5 of them. And the other 9, because it's like 16 total, I'm making a 3-inch wall and a separate piece, because sometimes I'm going to have a wall there, sometimes I won't. And the 3-inch walls are going to be more useful than these things, and sometimes these are just going to be independent and picking up and whatever. So that's what I've been doing to get into a result of this. Again, screws, nails, and it flushes up and it can be standalone. So in the process of all that, the patterns I've been putting on it, and right here, I did make some that were 2 pieces, because singles, I'm going to be needing singles more than I'm going to need doubles on every single T-square. So singles is going to be more flexible because you don't use every single room whenever you're doing a loadout. So singles. And I've done 4 like that, or like this. So basically what I'm into doing is I've been using this flat stir stick to, on a lot of them, and I'll probably end up gluing these things on here because I kind of like the idea of having the wood on top of it. But that also means I'm going to have to start cutting some of these woods. I think just other pieces, I'm just going to have these on there as decoration piece or trim or whatever else. But I've been using that, tracing my lines so I've got straight boards. And because I can't get in there with the roller, I'm just freehanding these. And I'm just kind of, you know, just making a connection wherever I want to make a connection. And voila. And if you're doing this and you want to know how to do it, once I've seen enough of this, when I've been rolling it, eventually I'm understanding the pattern. And I've been going over everything with the pen anyway to get a little deeper groove on it. So I'm getting a little bit more used to making the odd shapes. You know, mine are a little bit smaller, but I have been trying to put in some big boys here and there. And it's just basically anywhere that you got a point, draw a line. And you're done. And then your edges, I'm just kind of pulling the lines across on both sides. As you can see, I did this one already. Yeah, that's a line. Nyet, 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 nyet. And then, la la la, connect the dots. And maybe you make bigger ones, maybe you make smaller ones. Second verse, same as the first. So there I made a big boulder going across both sides. As you can see. And same thing with the top. And if you're wondering if I sound weird, it's because I have a nail in my mouth. And then where the boards are coming across, I'm just squaring those off. And theoretically, I'll remember to paint those when I get into painting. And then just kind of I mean, right now this is kind of a mess, but it'll be fine. It's fine. It's fine. There you go. So that's what I've been doing. And then you take your foam, if you want to take your foil, take your foil if you want to do that, and just kind of press into the spaces where the rocks are, and not the spaces where the support beams are. And you're done. Ta-da. Well, other than putting your screws in, but you're done. Nailed it.